Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. This happened on a sunny Saturday morning back in April. I was browsing Craigslist looking for a nice secondhand backpack before starting my senior year of high school. I had my eye on one of those Burberry backpacks, but couldn't afford to buy one for like $1,500 brand new. Luckily, I came across a listing for a new Burberry backpack for only $200. The seller said it was barely used and in great condition. I was so excited when I saw the listing. The pictures in the post looked totally legit and the price was amazing. I immediately emailed the seller, who responded quickly saying it was still available. We arranged a time that afternoon for me to go pick it up at their house, which was just a few neighborhoods over from mine. I took an Uber over to the seller's house, practically bouncing in my seat from anticipation. When I arrived, a nice older lady invited me inside and brought out the backpack. Just like the pictures, it looked basically brand new. No scuffs, stains, or tears. And it had the authentic Burberry plaid print interior. I happily handed over $200 cash for my new backpack, and the lady even gave me the original tags and receipt with it. Clutching my new treasure, I hopped back in the Uber feeling like I'd scored the deal of the century. I spent the whole ride home admiring the backpack and envisioning how cool I'd look strolling the school halls with it. When I got home, I immediately tried it on and checked myself out in the mirror. It looked awesome on me. I couldn't believe I found such an amazing backpack for so cheap on Craigslist. After snapping some selfies with my new bag, I decided to give the inside one more inspection just to be thorough. As I rifled through the inner pockets, I felt something cold and hard tucked away in the very back corner. Confused, I dug it out and nearly dropped it in shock. It was a large hunting knife, caked with dried blood. I froze, staring at the bloody knife now laying on my bedroom floor. My pulse pounded in my ears. Why was there a bloody knife hidden away in my new backpack? Thoughts raced through my mind. Did the nice old lady intentionally stash this? Was it some kind of twisted prank? Or did she buy the used bag herself without realizing what was tucked away inside? I didn't want to jump to conclusions about the sweet old lady who sold me the backpack, but finding a bloody knife inside was way beyond suspicious. Hand shaking, I did a quick search online for what to do when you find a bloody weapon. The advice was clear: don't tamper with it further and immediately call the police. Still in shock, I phoned our local police station and tried to calmly explain the situation. The officer who answered had a grave tone after I described the hunting knife. He said a patrol car would be at my house promptly to inspect it. Sure enough, just 10 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived, and I led them upstairs to my room feeling numb. The officers put on gloves and carefully bagged up the knife as evidence. They asked me a bunch of questions. Who sold me the backpack? Where did I meet them? Had I noticed any other weird items inside? I answered everything as best I could, my head still spinning. After getting all my info, the officers said they would go investigate the seller's house right away. They told me I did exactly the right thing by calling them immediately. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about the bloody knife and whether it was related to some crime. When the police finally updated me, they said the older woman who sold the backpack claimed she had simply forgotten her hunting knife was stashed away in that pocket after a recent trip. She seemed just as shocked when they showed up at her house, but I wasn't fully convinced by her story. If it was just an innocent mistake, why wouldn't she have taken the knife out before selling the backpack? And the blood looked too dark and crusty to be from a recent hunting trip. I got chills imagining her intentionally planting the knife and playing innocent with the police. Even if she was telling the truth, she must not have inspected the bag very thoroughly before selling it if she missed something so disturbing. The police assured me they would continue actively investigating where the backpack originated and how long the hunting knife had been stashed away in that hidden pocket. I can't help imagining all the possible grim explanations. Was it used in some kind of violence? Does it have someone's DNA on it? The truth is, I may never know the full story behind that awful discovery. I still feel chilled when I remember pulling out that bloody knife buried deep in my new backpack. While I'm glad I got the police involved quickly, the whole creepy experience definitely made me more cautious about buying secondhand stuff online. You just never know what kind of horror could be lurking out of sight. And to think I almost wore that backpack to school. Let's just say I'm sticking with boring old Jansport bags for now. At least I know the only thing inside those is loose pens and worn out textbooks. Though I'll definitely be inspecting even new backpacks thoroughly from now on before wearing them anywhere. Finding that hunting knife left me skeptical of people's claims about perfectly safe secondhand goods. The memories of its crusty blood still sometimes make me shudder when I'm out shopping for school supplies. I just keep picturing it buried in the depths of another backpack, an unwanted passenger waiting to terrify some other unsuspecting student down the line. So yes, it's plain old reliable Jansport for me these days. I was moving across the country for a new job and needed to sell my old Chevrolet pickup quickly. It had some miles on it, but still ran decently, so I decided to list it on Craigslist for a reasonable price. I figured it would be an easy sell to someone looking for cheap wheels. Just 2 days after posting the ad, I was contacted by a group of men with thick accents interested in buying my truck. We arranged to meet that afternoon in the parking lot of a local grocery store. When I pulled in, 3 tough-looking guys speaking a foreign language were already waiting by a shiny BMW. I hopped out of my truck as they walked over. The apparent ringleader, a tall, bald guy covered in tattoos, looked over the truck while his companion stared at me intently. In broken English, he made me an offer of $500 less than my asking price. I hesitated, but my move date was fast approaching, so I reluctantly agreed to the lowball figure. They didn't attempt to haggle at all, which struck me as odd, but I was just eager to get the sale over with. The bald guy peeled off stacks of cash from a huge wad in his pocket and counted out the money into my hand. The denominations were small and all the bills looked very worn. Before I could even count it, the men had already hopped in my truck and were pulling away. Something about the shifty guys and the way the whole hurried transaction went down left me with an uneasy feeling. I tried to push those thoughts out of my head as I pocketed the thick stack of cash. At least I'd gotten a fair price for an old beater, even if the buyers seemed a little shady. Over the next week as I packed up for my move, I kept seeing my truck around town with those same sketchy men driving it. Each time an uneasy pang hit my stomach, but I figured it wasn't my problem anymore. Once I moved, I probably wouldn't lay eyes on that truck again anyway. It was moving day and I decided to take my dog on one last walk through our neighborhood before the movers arrived. As we got close to the community park, I heard what sounded like firecrackers going off. Annoyed at the noise disturbing our quiet stroll, I looked around for the source. That's when I spotted my old pickup erratically speeding down the street, and realized that sound wasn't fireworks at all. It was gunshots. My mouth fell open in shock as I witnessed men leaning out the truck's windows wielding pistols and rifles, firing at a car giving chase. Pedestrians on the sidewalk screamed and either hit the ground or sprinted for cover. I crouched behind a tree, holding my dog close as my old truck pursued the car, bullets spraying in all directions. I couldn't believe the peaceful community park had suddenly turned into a war zone. After firing for a few more terrifying moments, the truck and car screeched around a corner out of view. The gun blasts faded, leaving only shell casings and my neighbors' panicked cries in their wake. I sat on the grass shaking, my poor dog whimpering in my arms. Over the next hour, a swarm of police descended on the area. I recounted what I'd seen to a detective, still in disbelief that the men I'd sold my truck to were apparently using it as a drive-by weapon. The detective said they were believed to be members of the notorious Eastern European organized crime syndicate that had recently turned up in the area. Though I wasn't involved in their criminal activity, I still felt guilty seeing my old truck used in such a horrific way. I can't help but replay the day of the sale over and over, looking for details I might have missed that could have tipped me off to who these men really were. Maybe if I'd noticed the tattoos or foreign language and thought twice about their interest in an old pickup, things could be different now. Or if I thought the worn cash and lack of handling seemed suspicious instead of just rushing to hand over the truck for a quick buck before I move. But in my haste and disregard of the subtle warning signs, I'd unknowingly put a vehicle into the hands of violent criminals, and my neighbors were now paying the price for my lapse in judgment. In the months since, I've beaten myself up with what-ifs about going through with that sale. What if I listened to my gut unease instead of ignoring it? What if I'd paid more attention to their shifty vibe instead of rushing to get cash for the truck? Could I have possibly predicted the violence to come? The detective tried to assure me I likely couldn't have known for certain what would come of our quick parking lot transaction, but I still feel a pit in my stomach every time I see a pickup resembling mine, knowing the misery it's brought to the community. I moved far away as planned, wanting to put distance between myself and the disturbing crime scene. I brought the stack of worn cash the men gave me to a bank to exchange for cleaner bills. For all I know, it could have been dirty money. I debated donating it all to charity or burning it. It didn't seem right to benefit from those ill-gotten gains. But practically, I needed money to start my new life across the country. I've been trying to save up for the latest iPhone model for months. Those things are crazy expensive. So when I came across a Craigslist ad selling them brand new and unlocked for half the normal price, it seemed too good to be true. I was skeptical, but the photos in the listing looked legitimate. Against my better judgment, I decided to check it out. The seller said he had a couple of the phones left at his house and could meet whenever. We agreed on a time that evening and I got the address, a small house on the outskirts of town. I hesitated before heading out, my gut telling me something seemed off about this deal, but my excitement at potentially saving hundreds of dollars pushed those doubts aside. I pulled up outside the dimly lit house right at our scheduled meeting time. Taking a deep breath and grabbing my pepper spray just in case, I walked up and knocked on the worn front door. I heard some rustling inside before it was answered by a gruff, burly-looking guy. He eyed me up and down and told me to come in. My instincts were practically screaming at me to turn around as I stepped into the messy entryway, but I reminded myself I was probably just being paranoid. I followed the man to a back room containing a table covered in smartphones and laptops. He picked up one of the iPhones and handed it to me. As I turned the device over in my hands, I had to admit it looked exactly like a real, untouched iPhone, still sealed in plastic. Before I could examine it further, the man demanded to see the cash I'd brought. I suddenly got a terrible feeling about this. As I slowly reached for my wallet, the man's eyes followed my every move like a predator about to lunge. Just as I pulled out the wad of bills I'd withdrawn from the bank earlier, the man forcefully snatched the money from my hand and shoved me hard. I stumbled backwards, shocked by the sudden aggression. He growled at me to get out unless I wanted trouble. Heart pounding wildly, I realized I'd walked straight into an attempted robbery. The man stepped towards me menacingly, clearly unwilling to let me leave peacefully with cash in hand. Thinking fast, I whipped out my pepper spray from my pocket and let loose a direct hit right in his eyes before he could react. He shrieked in pain, grasping his face. Not wanting to stick around for whatever he'd do next, I sprinted for the door as he bellowed threats behind me. I blew past the front door and beelined towards my car. As I jumped inside and scrambled to lock the doors, I could see the enraged man stumbling down the driveway, rubbing his eyes. I didn't wait around for him to regain his sight. Tires squealing, I reversed out of it like a bat out of hell. I drove about 15 minutes to a gas station before pulling over, my whole body shaking. As the adrenaline wore off, the gravity of the situation I'd willingly walked in to hit me. That ad had clearly been a scam to lure people in to be robbed, and had almost become this guy's next victim. What was I thinking pursuing some too-good-to-be-true iPhone deal at a sketchy house? My hands were still trembling as I called the police to report the attempted robbery. The dispatcher sounded alarmed as I recounted what had happened and encouraged me to file an official report in person as soon as possible. I hung up feeling stupid for ignoring all the red flags just to save a few bucks. My lapse in judgment could have gotten me seriously hurt or worse. I resolved never to pursue deals that seemed even slightly shady ever again. Nothing was worth risking my safety. On the bright side, at least I'd managed to hang on to my money and escape largely unscathed, thanks to my quick thinking and lucky pepper spray reflex. The cops commended my resourcefulness when I met with them later to give my full statement, but they also gently scolded me for going to a stranger's house alone for an online sale. I solemnly vowed I'd learned my lesson. Apparently, other reports had come in about this same house luring victims through online ads. But the man always managed to elude police by the time they arrived to investigate. They said my detailed description of him could hopefully help finally catch this criminal. I offered to work with a sketch artist and do anything I could to ensure he didn't rob or hurt anyone else. In retrospect, every part of this encounter was incredibly foolish and dangerous on my part. I'm lucky I got away when I did. My desire for a good deal put me in a very vulnerable position that could have easily become disastrous. I hate to think of others being lured in by the same scam, so now I always steer people away from anything that seems remotely questionable. Some lessons you learn the hard way so you can help prevent others from making similar mistakes. Getting pepper sprayed in the face was minor compared to what could have happened to me or what might happen to the next eager deal seeker who responds to one of these too good to be true ads. So I share my story as a cautionary tale whenever possible. If I can convince even one person to think twice before pursuing sketchy online deals, it was worth enduring this scary experience. At least now when friends or family get excited about some unbelievable offer online, I can give them a reality check, because I learned the hard way that those incredible deals can come with incredibly dangerous strings attached. My lapse in judgment almost cost me my safety and my savings. If not for luck and quick reflexes, things could have gone so much worse. It makes me sick to imagine others innocently falling into the same trap, just trying to save a little money. So I'll continue warning everyone I can, even if it means repeatedly reliving those terrifying moments of confrontation. Maybe hearing my first-hand account will give people pause next time they see a post that seems too good to be true. Knowing how easily we can be manipulated by the prospect of a great deal makes you view even simple transactions with much more care and caution. I know I'll never again pursue any online listings without thoroughly vetting the seller if I ever take that risk again at all. I've been struggling to find part-time work that could fit around my chaotic college schedule, so I jumped at the chance when I came across a Craigslist ad looking for drivers for a local courier company. It said they had open shifts with flexible hours and that no prior experience was needed. Seemed perfect for a broke student like me. I responded right away to set up an interview. The office I was directed to go to turned out to be a run-down warehouse on the outskirts of town. I sat in my car checking the address again, skeptical that this was right. But the email had said Unit 17 in the back, so I cautiously made my way over. Inside, I was greeted by a gruff older man who introduced himself as the owner. Right away, I got a weird vibe from his shifty eyes and evasive answers as he described the delivery work, but I told myself maybe he just had an unusual management style. I needed this gig, so I tried to overlook the questionable impressions. After a very brief interview where he asked almost nothing about me, the man said I could start right away. He gestured toward a white van parked out back and told me my first pickup was ready to go. Apprehensively, I made my way over to the vehicle, where I discovered an unmarked cardboard box, sealed up with tape on the passenger seat. When I asked what was inside, the owner vaguely said it contained legal prescriptions I was to deliver to an address he scribbled down. I wasn't sure about transporting mystery packages, but he assured me not to worry. Though I still felt uneasy, I agreed, telling myself it was probably contraband meds for people who couldn't afford them normally. I typed the address into my phone and headed out, meticulously following all traffic laws. As I drove, I couldn't stop thinking about the contents of the box sitting ominously on the seat beside me. The whole job just felt off. After about 15 minutes of deliberating, my conscience won out. I pulled into a grocery store parking lot and called the warehouse owner, hands shaking. I apologized but said I wasn't comfortable making this blind delivery. To my surprise, he became pirate. He insisted I complete the job as agreed or else face consequences. I declined again more firmly despite his threats, and he eventually hung up after cursing me out. Though rattled, I felt like a weight was lifted as I turned the van around and headed back. Something about this job was seriously sketchy, and I wanted no part of it. As I pulled up, I saw the owner storm out looking livid. I quickly dropped the still-sealed box on the ground outside and drove off, ignoring his shouts. My pulse was racing as I got the hell out of there. While I wasn't sure exactly what I almost gotten wrapped up in, my gut said it was something very illegal. Why else would the owner be so willing to hire some random college kid so hastily? The angry threats he'd made echoed in my mind, but I pushed down the fear, trying to convince myself he was all talk. Surely he wouldn't come after me and risk exposing his shady dealings. Still, I eyed my rearview mirror closely the whole drive home, half expecting the mystery van to appear. Once back in the safety of my apartment, the gravity of the situation I'd nearly found myself in hit me. I could have so easily been roped into quietly delivering substances I knew nothing about for people I never met. I felt stupid for almost ignoring all the red flags, just because I was desperate for cash. I decided my best course of action was to report this suspicious job to the police. I gave them descriptions of the warehouse, the owner, the van, and all the details about being hastily hired to blindly deliver packages. The officer commended me for ultimately refusing and encouraged me to let them know if I saw that van or received any more threats. In the weeks afterward, I was on edge constantly, braced for retaliation. But thankfully none came. The police increased patrols around my neighborhood, which helped me feel safer. I kept an eye on the local news too, wondering if an arrest was made, but the seedy warehouse owner seemed to have gone underground after my report, apparently unwilling to risk further scrutiny. I can only imagine how much worse things could have turned out if I'd ignored my instincts and actually completed that delivery. I might have gotten caught red-handed transporting drugs or something even more sinister. And who knows how deep I could have gotten if I'd needed the cash badly enough to keep accepting those jobs, no questions asked. The whole ill-advised interview taught me to pay attention to warning signs no matter how desperate you are. Something criminal clearly thrives by taking advantage of vulnerable people down on their luck. But turning a blind eye can have dangerous consequences that just aren't worth the money. This chilling experience made me way more cautious about pursuing sketchy online job postings. I'd rather keep scrounging than risk my safety and my clean record. Now, I always extensively research companies and ask tons of questions before accepting any mystery work. And I have to trust my gut if something seems even slightly shady. One impulsive response to a Craigslist ad could have changed the whole course of my life. Thankfully, I spoke up before I gotten in too deep, but others might not be so lucky. So I make sure to share my story as a lesson to be wary of anyone eager to hastily hire you for vague assignments. Jobs that seem too good to be true usually are. Your freedom and integrity aren't worth sacrificing over desperation for a paycheck from a questionable source. Listen to your instincts. They exist to protect you from dangerous mistakes you can't take back. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.